So Dr. Ratio is finally going to be here on the ESR servers. He's actually already out, and people are actually using him already. But in terms of EU and US servers, at least by the time this video goes up, he is still about 12 hours away in total from both servers, essentially, right? EU gets a few hours earlier than the US servers, but you guys get the gist of things. So we're going to go ahead and talk about Dr. Ratio overall. I'm going to break down his kit again for y'all here. We're going to talk about, I think, good partners for Dr. Ratio. We're going to talk about good relic sets, I think, for Dr. Ratio. And then we'll end off with good light cones, I think, for Dr. Ratio. I did do a separate video talking about whether you should summon for Dr. Ratio's light cone or not. We're actually go a lot more in depth there than I will in this video about the, best light cones for him, and whether you think, or at least whether I think personally that you should really gun for his light cone. We'll touch on that here, but I just want to, I'll go ahead and just let y'all know before, we restart the video and we talk about it there. So let's get right to it. Dr. Ratio here, of course, is an imaginary hunt path character. And if you take a look here, again, these are his stats. I think I want to go ahead and look at the speed and the energy real quick here. I think, these are like important like subsets to see. Actually, his speed is a little bit on the lower end compared to other hunt path characters. So like if we could take a look here at, let's say, Seal, we could also take a look here at Topaz and even Yanqing, right? If we take a look here, Seal's speed is actually 115. But Seal's, based around a lot of speed in arcade, right? So that's fair. Topaz right here is 110 speed, and then Yanqing right here is 109 speed. So honestly, usually hunt path like 5-star characters have been around 110 speed, just roughly 110 to 105, 15 I mean. So Dr. Race is actually on the lower end in comparison to them at 103 speed. Again, not the worst thing ever, but that's important to talk about, especially that'll be brought up later during Relics in terms of like what stats you maybe want to go for this guy. His energy is 140 as well. It would have been nice if it was like 130 or something like that, right? But not like the worst thing in the world. It's just that you see again Seal 120, Topaz 130, and then Yanqing is actually 140 here, but it can make it a little inconsistent to get the ult in terms of like every 2 turns, essentially, or every 2 attacks for this ratio. That's the only thing. Again, you could work around that for sure. They're not like gonna make Dr. Ratio is bad because of that. No way at all. But I just want to bring that up specifically. So Dr. Ratio here, we could take a look at his skills again. The basic attack and the skill by themselves not really doing much. The basic attack deals imaginary damage equal to 100% of Ratio's attack to a single target enemy. Then the skill right here deals imaginary damage equal to 150% of Ratio's attack to a single target enemy. Again, not doing much by themselves. The big parts are here in his talent and his ultimates. So his ultimate actually, it would be better for us to explain his talent first, because his ultimate does have something to do, including the talent. And this is what this guy's main part of the kit is, the follow-up attack here. So when Dr. Ratio uses a skill, he has a 40% chance of launching a follow-up attack against his target for 1 time. That deals imaginary damage equal to 270% of Dr. Ratio's attack. And again, this right here is going to be where I think most of his damage will come from, is that follow-up attack doing 270% of his attack, right? Now, even the ultimate, obviously, is not really doing as much damage. If you just take a sneak peek here, see 240% of Dr. Ratio's attack is what the ultimate is doing. But, that's still good. But, this follow-up attack is where, the main meat of the card is, I think, damage-wise. Then for each debuff the target enemy has, he gets an additional 20% chance to launch that follow-up attack. So again, it is 1 follow-up attack, but you can go from 40 to even 100%, right? If you have 3 debuffs in the enemy, that is a total 100% fixed chance to do a follow-up attack against the target that's hit with his skill. And if that target enemy does end up being defeated before the follow-up attack even triggers, the follow-up attack still will go through as long as, the RNG does meet. And it'll be directed at a single random enemy instead. So even if it's like, you guarantee the follow-up attack, if you kill the first enemy with just the skill, the follow-up attack will just hit someone random. Or even like the 80% chance. Let's say you get an 80% chance, 60%. Same thing. As long as the follow-up attack triggers, it'll always trigger no matter if the enemy's already finished off or not, which is good, right? I think that's very helpful. It would suck if it's like, you kill the enemy, you don't even get the follow-up attack. Like it's just nice for it to still do that, right? That's cool. Then his ultimate here, again, we already said it deals 240% imaginary damage equal to Dr. Ratio's attack to a single target enemy, and then it applies this effect, Wise Man's Folly. When Dr. Ratio's allies attack a target afflicted with Wise Man's Folly, Dr. Ratio himself launches his talent follow-up attack for one time against this target, which is why I wanted to talk about this. So again, let's say you use this Dr. Ratio's ultimate, and then you go ahead and use a skill, you have the follow-up attack, so it's like, okay, use the ultimate into the skill, into the follow-up attack, then if the allies start attacking him, he could do up to another 2 target attacks, right? So, because if we take a look here, Wiseman Folly can actually be triggered for up to 2 times, and only affects the most recent target of Dr. Ratio's ultimate, right? So this trigger count resets after Dr. Ratio's ultimate is used. So that's good. Again, it says it can be triggered up to 2 times, and then if you use the ultimate again, it does just reset. So that's pretty nice. So in total, I mean, you can have a pretty big damage turn if you have the allies follow up against that enemy twice, and he's doing basically 3 follow-up attacks of 270%, damage, and then you have the ultimate plus the skill right here. I mean, that's gonna add up if you're able to get a turn like that. So Dr. H is actually very, very good against like single target enemies. So like these really just the main bosses, right? You target him with Dr. Ratio and he's able to basically solo some of these bosses, which is absolutely incredible, right? Based on what his kit is allowing him to go ahead and do. He does have a technique here, of course. The technique is actually nice for him, obviously, right? It's better be good for him. After he uses the technique, he does create a special dimension that taunts nearby enemies. That does last for 10 seconds. And then, if the enemies are in that special dimension, he gets an 100% base chance to reduce each single target enemy's speed by 15%, which lasts for 2 turns, right? So, the thing about that is obviously a debuff. So, just baseline, that because of that, the debuff right here, that'll go from 40% to a 60% chance to his additional follow-up attack, just guaranteed, and that's just good, right? That's nice to have, right? And obviously just a speed debuff in general for the enemies, definitely just take it, right? So his bonus abilities here, again, more debuffs are very important for this guy if you haven't noticed. When dealing damage to a target that has 3 more debuffs, for every debuff that the target has, damage dealt by Dr. Ratio to this target increases by 10% up to a maximum of 50%. So, I mean, since you have to have 3 more debuffs, that it is just a minimum of 30%, then that can go to 40% or 50%, depending on if you have 3 to 5 debuffs on the enemy. That's good. That's just a nice little extra damage increase right there. When the skill is used to attack an enemy target, there's actually a 100% base chance to reduce the target's effect res by 10% for 2 turns. So again, this also is a debuff right here. So when he uses the skill, he's debuffing the enemy. When, this debuffs are on the target itself, he does get the additional attack buff. So this goes hand in hand here. Obviously, the skill will apply the debuff, and then the follow-up attack will go ahead and get the extra damage as well. So it's really working well together here. Then Summation is the final one, which I think is arguably, could you say this is like one of the most important ones right here? When he uses his skill, for every debuff on the target, his crit rate increases by 2.5% and crit damage by 5%. This stacks up to 6 times. So if you do have 6 debuffs on the enemy, like he gets up to 15% crit rate and then 30% crit damage there, which is just very, very massive. That's a great built-in just amount of crit damage and crit rate just in his kit right here by using his bonus abilities. When you activate that part in his what was it called again? The traces, right? The word blocked out of the top of my mind, but that's awesome. Him having that already built in crit damage and crit rate in his kit, that allows, I think, a little more flexibility when you're actually farming his relics, which is nice to see there. But that's pretty much it in terms of his kit. Again, Dr. Ratio seems like a very, very good single target damaging character. and he just seems like a powerful DPS alone based on what his kid's able to do. So we'll actually talk about the Elodons next right here. So it's right here. So obviously he has 6 different Elodons you can get, and we'll just talk about all of them just real quickly here. So E1 right here, Pride comes before Fall. The maximum stackable count for Trace Summation increases by 4, and when the battle begins, he immediately obtains 4 stacks of Summation, needs to unlock Summation first. So this, I think, is like the golden one. Just this E1 is like the golden Elodon to unlock. And you know, if you're ready for Dr. Ratio and you're a Dr. Ratio fan and you're already saving for this guy, then it's like, oh, that E1 I think is actually really worth snagging. Which is funny, obviously he's free, so you already just get him for once free, but this E1 is crazy because the summation count increases by 4, and then he gets the 4 stacks start of turn. So this 6 going up to 10, it means that the crit damage goes up to 50%, and then the crit rate goes up to 25%, and then baseline he already has what, 10% crit rate and then 20% crit damage, just because when entering the fight he gets 4 stacks just for free. Sure, like definitely you'll take that, right? That's a lot of value, and again that also really makes it easier to farm those relic substats that I just hate following relic substats, man. You put the time in, you can get them, but man, it can be really annoying sometimes, right? Take a look at everything else here. When the talent follow-up attack hits a target, for every debuff the target has, additionally deals 20% extra imaginary damage to up Dr. Reese's attack. This effect can be triggered for a maximum of 4 times during each follow-up attack right there, right? So this good overall, right? I think it's a nice Elodon for sure, but I wouldn't say that's like as great as this E1 right here. When triggering the talent, additionally regenerates 15 energy for Dr. Ratio. That'll help with the energy cost right there. And then the E6 right here additionally increases the triggerable count for Wiseman Folly by 1. The damage dealt by the talent's follow-up attack increases by 50% actually, so that's quite a bit. And all of these are good for sure, but again, I think that to like really use Dr. Ratio to his like max ability, you're like, again, huge Dr. Ratio fan, E1 is definitely good enough, but E1 is not even needed. E1 is just like if you like, I think if you're like really like this guy and you're like really interested in farming him, which you know is fair. But you know, we'll talk about this real quick. I was gonna talk about this at the end, but we'll just do this real quick. If it's between that E1 and his light cone, it's definitely that light cone that you want to go for. I'm thinking this light cone is really crazy for this guy. It has 20% crit damage increase. Then again, for every debuff on an enemy target, which you're going to be running this guy with debuffers based on his kit anyways, he gets 8% extra crit damage right there, up to 3 times. So that is a total of 24% crit damage here, plus this 20%, that is 44% crit damage. Then when he uses his ultimate to attack the enemy target, the wearer receives the Disputation effect, which increases damage dealt by 36% further, and the follow-up attacks ignore 24% of the target's defense, right? This effect lasts for 2 turns, so that'll basically be active for his other follow-up attacks when allies attack the main target, and he's just gonna be doing so much extra damage here, and again, the extra crit damage, like I was saying with the other things, help you with relic stuff. So I think this is what you want to go for, probably over the actual like E1 right there, because you just get more from that, right? Because from this right here you'll get like what, just the 20% crit damage, and I think it's an extra, how much extra is that? I think it's just an extra, I can't even think of the exact number, like 12.5%, 10% or so, like crit rate right here. I think it's 10%, right? You know, they're just getting that extra 10%, yeah. But this right here, you're getting so much extra crit damage, you're getting damage in general, and the defense ignore. I think this is much more valuable, honestly, just overall. So I would definitely say this is what you want to go for over the E1, but the E1's also good. So that's that for Dr. Ratio. Now, if we go ahead and talk about partners. I think partners is an important thing I do want to go ahead and touch on real quick. In terms of partners, again, this guy is able to work with a couple of units. I think Ron May is a really good partner for this guy, right? With the weakness break, she's going to be providing the support ability right here. So obviously all damage, 32% increase. Well, all allies damage 32%, and then the weakness break efficiency increases by 50%, which is really, really nice here. And just Ron May is just a stupid character, right? She also does increase speed 10% for the team here with her talents. So with that base speed increase, that's going to help Dr. Ratio, who has like that slightly lower speed compared to some of these other 5-star hunt characters. And obviously as a DPS character, this guy wants to go ahead and do a lot of actions. He does have the follow-up attack, but still, I guess the faster he is, the better, honestly, right? In terms of what this guy is able to do. So I just like him quite a bit. I think he actually works really, really well with Ron May. Ron May is a busted support character, like, go figure, right? In terms of other characters, again, I think that he could actually work decently with Fushuan. Sure, I think that definitely is an option. You can go ahead and pair him with Bronya again, with this guy being like, if you run him as like the single DPS on the team, I think obviously Bronya is another really, really good support character. Her being able to action him forward is just like, just the action forward for Bronya has just always been crazy. And then she also does increase the crit damage for him as well, so just even more crit damage there. DPS, definitely will go ahead and take that. I think this right here, Silverwolf, one of his better partners, honestly. I think Silverwolf is just a really, really good character for this guy. She is implanting the debuffs right here. So see with her skill right here, she's implanting a weakness on field to the enemy. It also reduces the enemy damage res by weakness stat for 20% for 2 turns. And that's a thing right there, which is really, really nice. But if we take a look here, I think it's her talents. Right here, yeah, her talent. She can create 3 types of bugs: 10% attack reduction, 8% defense reduction, and then speed reduction of 6%. And then every time she attacks, she has a 72% base chance to implant a random bug that lasts for 3 turns in the enemy target. So she's just always implanting these debuffs to the enemy, making Dr. Ratio get more damage, and especially if you have his Lycone as well, that'll increase his crit damage, and he's gonna do a lot with Silverwolf. Silverwolf is just insanely incredible for this guy, and obviously she does have a 100% base chance to decrease the enemy's defense by 45% her ultimate, which again is just more debuffs and more damage for this guy. So I mean, those are just characters that are just like really sticking out to me here. Qingyun could actually be a good option for this guy, because he has 140 cost energy for his ultimate, so she'll be able to help him get his ultimate a lot faster. I think she's pretty skill point efficient as well overall, so that's good. Pela is a decent character option as well. Pela also is able to apply debuffs to the enemy, so that's pretty nice. I've seen people talking about Yukong. I think Yukong could work if you have her E6, but I would say I probably would use Qingyun over Yukong for this guy, just because she's also providing the energy like regeneration, which could be very helpful for him to get his ultimate off a lot more common. I think also another character that could work well with this guy. And then finally, of course, don't think I forgot about her, Topaz. Topaz increasing the follow-up damage and everything like that. She's basically his BFF, right? Topaz is able to do really, really well with this guy, and you definitely want to go ahead and, if you are, again, a huge Dr. Ratio fan, Topaz is going to be pretty good for him in total. So, I mean, that is pretty nice. And again, as you can see here, the single target enemy with proof of death status that increases the damage takes from follow-up attacks by 50%, which will, again, also affect Dr. Ratio's follow-up attack damage to the enemy. So that's just good, right? So I think those are just a couple of partners I think will work well for him. Again, sustained, you could probably just run him with any sustain if you really want any of these 3: Woho, Lucha, Fushuan. I don't know if they would necessarily be best one for him at the top of my head, but I think those 3 will work just nicely for him overall. Now, Relics, right? So this is, I think, probably the Relic set I'm farming personally. I do have Relic sets ready for this guy in terms of this one right here. I do want to note, in 2.0, it does seem like there's actually going to be good relic set for this guy that you may want to go ahead and potentially invest in over even this one. I'm not going to talk about it exactly because I know some people may care about spoilers, but that's something you can consider if you really want to go ahead and wait. You could see if that would be preferred for you. But this one is actually still going to be really good for him regardless. Again, the imaginary damage increased by 10%. Then again, debuffed enemies, he wants debuffed enemies. If he's attacking a debuffed enemy, he gets 10% damage increase, and then the crit damage increases by 20% and gets imprisoned enemies, which you do get from weakness breaking him. And again, remember I talked about Ron May earlier. Ron May will help him go ahead and get the weakness break with imaginary damage, and that'll actually imprison him. Welt, another character that could really help out with that. You can run him with Welt. Welt could be a decent option for him, right? I wouldn't say Welt's one of the better options, but you know, if you have Ron May, she's going to help this guy a lot if you have a 4-piece for this set. So I think this set, I'm actually going to likely run a 4-piece for this and him with Ron May, Silver Wolf, and then I'm thinking most likely probably Fushuan or Luocho, one of the two, because those are the two I own. This one here, I think there is like something where you could do like a two-piece imaginary damage and then 2-piece this right here if you want to just like wait and see for like whatever is going to be coming out 2.0. But I think if you can, a 4-piece for this set works. I've seen people talking about this one, the Grand Duke Crown of Netherflame, because of the follow-up attacks. And honestly, I would say this one, like I'm not really sure, because again, this stacks up to 8 times less for 3 turns. Like there are turns where you can like get used for this for sure, and he has a follow-up attack character, but I'm gonna say between these two, the Wastelander one is still better, providing the crit rate right here and the crit damage, and then just imaginary damage in general, right? I think I'm gonna like this overall better, especially pairing this guy with Ron May, one of his like better partners, I think, if you're using this set especially. And this is like, again, I'm not really like, you know, I'm gonna go, I'm not gonna say this is bad. I think this is definitely usable for Dr. Ratio, but I like this one a lot better just overall, at least for like the build with Ron May especially. So that's that right there. And then in terms of his planet orbs, we have the Salsoto's Moving City. I actually think this is the one I'm gonna go ahead and run, right? Increases crit rate by 8%, and then when the wearer's current crit rate reaches 50% or higher, the wearer's ultimate and follow-up attack damage increases by 15%, which, again, the bulk of his damage is coming from his ultimate and follow-up attack, like we talked about earlier. So, there you go, right? And I feel like this 50% crit rate condition is not going to be too hard to go ahead and reach, because, again, this guy does already have the built-in crit rate, especially if you do have his E1. You know, if you do end up getting his E1 on the Lycone or something like that, right? It's going to be even easier for him to hit the crit rate. So, all in all, I mean, he even has 12% crit rate here from his stats. So, I feel like this is not going to be a hard thing to achieve, given you're able to get the good substats in your equipment, right? Speaking of substats, I guess I should have brought that up. I'm thinking, again, you want to go ahead and do crit damage. You want to go crit rate as well, will be pretty important. I think speed is going to be nice for this guy. You could even go, I think, probably, what's the word for it? I think it's, let me double check here. I think it's EHR, yeah, EHR. Well, I should have just said effect hit rate, right? That could be nice for him, because again, he's applying his own debuff, so him getting a little more consistent with the application of his debuffs as well will be nice. But I think, you know, again, mainly crit rate, crit damage for the body. Again, probably crit rate, crit damage for the feet. I could see speed as well, right? I think speed will be good. And again here, I'm thinking for the planet sets, at least I think I'm gonna be running imaginary damage for the planet sphere, and then for the link rope, I would say attack percentage works out the best overall. But if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and if I want to clarify anything, I'll add a comment below there. But at least that's like the main stats I'm going to be running overall, at least aiming for when it comes to Dr. Ratio. Of course, he's a DPS character, so you kind of want to go ahead and focus that. I think, you know, attack percentage like could be good too, but I think those other stats are going to be important for him, especially with, you know, crit rate, crit damage, and the crit rate here. You want to meet that condition too, which again shouldn't really be too bad. I feel like Dr. Ratio, because he has that built in, like all these built-in like crit damage, crit rate, etc., it's not going to be too hard to go ahead and get a decent build for this guy at the very minimum. This one right here, people are talking about this as well. 12% attack increase, and then I think 12/18% more damage, depending on his speed being 135 or 160. I think if you get Dr. Ratio that has above 160 speed, you know, especially Ron May will buff his speed as well. This could be usable for sure. I think this could be good. I think I'm liking this better though. Personally, this is what I'm going to be running here, because especially again, the ultimate follow-up damage is what really matters. You can squeeze more damage out of this one, I think, but I think this is what I'm going to go ahead and do personally, and especially because again, thinking building for the substats crit rate, crit damage will be basically the best ones for him. If you're trying to focus and push like so much speed into this guy, I'm not sure. That's my opinion anyways. Speed will be good for him though, I guess, for sure, right? Because he is on that lower end for speed. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys even disagree with what I say for Dr. Ratio. But these are my opinions on how you should build Dr. Ratio. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.